Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lifeline, the conversation that is defining healthcare's future. Today's episode is about something we really don't talk about enough in our industry and beyond. It's investability. So not hype, not promises, but genuine signals to show where the market is actually ready for capital, talent, and innovation. So we're calling this the investability of disruption because we're seeing disruption everywhere across every industry. So I'm very excited to be talking about what is actually happening across these industries. We're seeing small, nimble teams that are building tools that are threatening often trillion-dollar incumbents. And those incumbents are very well aware of what's happening, so much so that they're actually doing what's called self-disruption. And when you see this dynamic, you know you're looking at a genuinely investable moment where the incumbents themselves know change is inevitable. So today, we'll be exploring two sectors where this is playing out: marketing and healthcare, and the intersection of agentics between. We've brought together two builders who are living this reality, and I'm very excited to be introducing them today. First, we have Patrick, founder of Masumi. Patrick, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic, my friend. Excited for our dialogue.
Yeah.
And we also have Tuan, the CEO of LifeAI. Tuan, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Fantastic. Great to have you with us. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation between all of us here today. So the question we're exploring today is, what makes disruption inevitable? When R&D budgets begin to shift towards self-disruption, when small teams are now threatening trillion-dollar incumbents, and entire sectors are realizing they have to evolve or become obsolete, what does this look like when the future actually builds out? And what does it look like in reality today? Before we jump in, I would like to note that we are running a $50 USDC giveaway for our viewers who are watching live. And at some point during this conversation, we will share the answer to our trivia question. So when you hear it, drop below in the comments your answer. And at the end, we're going to select 5 winners at random. And that could be you. So stay with us. Your question today is, how many months or weeks did LifeAI help to reduce a specific healthcare project timeline to? So what was that number that it was reduced to? So let's go ahead and jump right into our phenomenal conversation on disruption. Let's start out with Patrick. Patrick, I'm curious, in terms of Masumi, what led you to pioneering this initiative? And I'd love to know a little bit about what makes Masumi tick. What problems are you solving? And then more importantly, why are some of Europe's largest brands working with you to self-disrupt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Masumi started almost 1.5 years ago at this point, actually, I think 1 year and a few months. And it's interesting because, you know, I come from a very startup-y world. I started a crypto company first, which was called NMaker. And I got approached by a cool guy named Sebastian from Service Plan Group. And Service Plan is one of Europe's largest media agencies. So it's like a super large agency with hundreds of sub-agencies and thousands of employees. And they work with all the largest brands here. And Service Plan is really interesting because they're one of the very few agencies in the world that actually realized how disruptive AI will be, and that they have to act instead of, you know, becoming obsolete. And partially probably because they're still owner-led, so they can take like really big risks and really big bets, which is very impressive to me as, you know, a startup guy. Me thinking about the corporate world, you know, I think of slow and all that kind of stuff. Large enterprises with a lot of committees and so on. But Service Plan was really the opposite of that. They acted very quickly, very decisively, and they said, okay, we want to disrupt ourselves, and we want to really be a leader in this world, and we want to basically use AI to make our offerings better and offer to our clients what was previously taking, you know, weeks sometimes in like just mere days or hours. And because of that, they're building like a whole suite of different agents, specifically marketing agents. And they basically realized, okay, now that we have all these agents, how are we actually going to be selling them? And how are we connecting those agents with other agents as well? Because the vision that the world is going towards at the moment is really about not having, you know, one super agent or one ChatGPT that can solve everything, but like different agents, different APIs, different tools from different companies interacting with each other autonomously, and like having a whole agentic economy essentially. And that's where we came in. Sebastian was smart enough to figure out in his head already that, you know, by combining blockchain and AI together, you can basically create the payment network that is necessary for those agents to pay each other and interact with each other. And then he came to us with this idea, and we were really excited about it, and started building this network, but also the marketplace, which we call Sokosumi. So we have a lot of sumis, Sokosumi, Masumi, Kodosumi, and so on. And Service Plan is there to just create agents and put them on the platform and make them available. And then because of that, we have this focus on like the marketing kind of industry as a first vertical, I would say. But then later on, there could be agents from any kind of industry as well. Hopefully also healthcare, of course.
I love that. And so it's fascinating to see that we're experiencing this in marketing, since it is a quick industry. Naturally, marketing is proactive, but it also needs to be reactive in some ways. So with incumbents realizing they need to transform their business, especially as you mentioned, Patrick, many of these incumbents are known for being a bit slower compared to the startup trajectory. So seeing them kind of match that pace of innovation is really interesting. And Tuan, from your perspective, I know healthcare is notoriously slow to change. Are you seeing anything similar in terms of existing entities in healthcare mirroring this speed of disruption?
Yeah, so thank you so much. So I think let me make a very quick introduction about LifeAI. So you can consider LifeAI is like a Google DeepMind for life care. Basically, it's a AI foundational platform to turn sick care into a true life care. And so talking about the disruption in healthcare, right? I think this decade or like we are entering a really interesting time where the AI can actually have things to move like 10x faster and 10x cheaper. I can talk a lot about pharmaceutical industry, which is like a really old, like 50 years old, which doesn't have much of the let's say improvement. But using AI, people can actually reduce the time from identify the drug target into the first clinical trial from 5 to 7 years into basically less than 36 months. So basically almost like 10x faster to make drug discovery like way faster. Like for a drug discovery project, it normally costs about like 2 to 3 billion US dollar, 12 to 15 years to make a drug. Okay, and hopefully for for the next 10 years, things will move much faster. People can able to like a lot of people can actually enter into the drug discovery industry. It's no longer area for like big pharma. Any research group using AI can actually leverage artificial intelligence to make drug discovery much faster. So that is one of the example, like a very clear example these days. So if you go to the Bay Area, you go to any maybe different coffee shop, you can see people talking about, hey, I'm going to start another drug discovery company using a very, let's say, homemade AI tool or something. So I think it's a real disruption. And of course, the disruption will come from Stanford or some Berkeley or some like Google, DeepMind or something. And it will basically go into other place in the world. Yeah.
And you mentioned something very interesting, Tuan. There, you called the current system sick care, and I know in our previous conversations that's really resonated with me and I think many folk. Rather than calling it healthcare, it's a provocative framing, and I'm curious what you mean by that. Are we looking at an industry that maybe has morphed into something that it was initially supposed to prevent, and can self-disruption potentially kind of solve that and bring that sick care back to the healthcare that we're all looking for?
Yes, that's basically it. So basically, like whenever I talk about the current healthcare system, basically it's like really broken. The existing healthcare system is just basically built on a very wrong incentive. Whenever you think about healthcare, you think about hospital, you think about hey, going and meet a doctor. I have a disease. I'm sick, right? But most of the time, actually, like 70% of the diseases actually are preventable. You don't need to go to the doctor. You don't need to go to the hospital. A lot of things is very much preventable for you. And so the original meaning of healthcare is just basically like caring for life, not profiting from sickness, from illness. But these days, a lot of healthcare system basically the incentive is just like, hey, I want to keep you longer in my hospital. I want to make a drug so that it can maintain your sickness a little bit longer. Let's cure the root of the disease instead of like maintaining the sickness. Okay, so that's why like either you can prevent it or you cure the root of this, or you totally destroy the disease from the world. Yeah. However, most of the I think like I should not say 90% or maybe more on the healthcare systems is still basically based on the illness. They're profiting from the illness of the people who basically like our patient. Yeah. And really hope that with the advance of AI, people can, like, for example, like Chan Zuckerberg's BioHub, they have a really nice mission statement. So no disease, or we can prevent most of the disease 100 years from now. Yeah, using AI. And that is a non-profit organization set up to have a really good mission. And I think they've been there for like 10 years, but actually the Chan Zuckerberg BioHub just recently like take off. They produce a lot of things. Yeah.
I love that, and it really is illuminating, Tuan, how you've conveyed this. It seems as though the profit incentives that you've mentioned and the amount of money we're talking about, 3, 6, $10 billion for drug discovery. It's not just one person who's trying to keep everyone sick. It's a whole system. It's a whole system of entrenched interests. And as I see it in all the conversations I've had, individuals, people like us here on the call and our listeners, they want to feel better. They want to live the best life that they can, as expressed by their their nurses, their doctors, etc. So it's the system itself and the shifts that we're seeing that will kind of shift sick care back into healthcare. So it's a super exciting time. And I'm really interested as well, because when you mentioned entrenched interests, Tuan, Patrick, I'd imagine that the kind of marketing world has its own entrenched interests. So like agencies billing by the hour, naturally AI compressing the amount of time it takes to do things can be a negative result there. When you're pitching Masumi to these larger brands, do you encounter any resistance? And ultimately, in your experience, where do you see that decision point where they realize, okay, yes, we have to say yes because it's time to disrupt ourselves, otherwise we'll be left behind? I'm curious as to what kind of resistance you may be meeting, in your conversations at this stage.
I mean, there's a lot of resistance, of course, in many different directions as well, and most of it I think doesn't necessarily come from the customers, so from the actual brands who are hiring the services, but it comes more from actually also internal, because people are scared. People are scared that AI is going to take away their job, and I never really worked in super large corporate. The only time I did was when I did an internship at PwC. And I was, even then, like many years ago, I was walking through the halls and I was looking at what everyone is doing on their computers. And I was just seeing people, copy pasting from one Excel sheet to another Excel sheet. And this is stuff that's very similar also to, marketing agencies and large marketing corporates and so on there. And we like to call it intellectual hard work, because it doesn't really require creativity. It doesn't really require that much skill. It just requires a little bit of thought, of course, but it's still hard work and it's not very rewarding. And I think that AI is really here at the moment to replace this intellectual hard work and essentially make that obsolete. And by doing that, it also opens up a lot more opportunities in the more interesting stuff that are more naturally human, like actual creativity, actual brainstorming new ideas and stuff like that, which AI cannot do very well. And I think the majority of resistance right now is definitely coming from people who think that AI is just going to replace everyone and every human aspect. And no one is really sure what is actually going to happen. I don't know either. But I see that the people who really embrace AI the most are definitely the ones who benefit from it the most as well. Our developers, for example, are really embracing it at the moment, and they've all done at least like a 2x in productivity. And another point, which is also really important, actually, is we're from Europe, and our customers are mostly from Europe, and all AI companies in the world are basically from America or maybe China, some of them, but the large enterprises are scared as hell to just give all their data into ChatGPT and then have OpenAI become this like massive thing that no one can control anymore. So that's actually a big concern, and that's also, I think, part of the reason why there's like a little bit of a microcosm evolving now in Europe, where decentralization and privacy and all this kind of stuff with AI is more pushed. And I think this is also super relevant for healthcare. Of course, people don't want to have OpenAI know everything about their healthcare essentially. So yeah.
Absolutely, it's a very important point. The personally identifying information component. I'm interested in something that specifically that you brought up there, Patrick. The personal component, right? I definitely can understand folk who are they're skilled at what they do. Maybe they focus, say, majoritively on intellectual hard work, right? Things that they're skilled at, but can be reasonably automated. I'm curious as to your experiences when these teams ultimately embrace agentic automation. Do you find that in many cases, these individuals who are a bit resistant at first end up embracing it due to, as you outlined, the ability for it to potentially free up time to unlock greater levels of creativity?
100%, 100%. I mean, you can look at it, and you can look at the developer community, and you see what's happening there right now, and you can just take that and basically say, okay, the same thing is going to happen to every other department in the next 12 months, in my opinion. And the developers are really hardcore. They don't like AI. Most of the really good ones, at the beginning, they were like, oh, AI is just going to produce shitty code, it's unusable, and so on. And almost every single one of them has moved from that stage to now actively using AI every single day. And some of them more, some of them less. Some of them only use like autocomplete kind of stuff. But it's really interesting to observe. Even my dad, who's also a developer, he was like super anti-AI at the beginning, and now he's using it every day. So I think that's what's going to happen in every single department, as I said.
Definitely an exciting time. And as someone who is non-technical, I like to joke. I think Ruby is a gemstone, Python is a snake. Seeing the evolving ubiquity of agentics and AI in programming has been a while to witness. I definitely share the sentiment there, Patrick, seeing the change from this is weird, probably nothing, to we really need this to stay competitive. And it's exciting because Tuan, Patrick brought something up that I definitely see in healthcare. There's this delta between what's possible and what we have, and in healthcare, I see that delta as even larger. With over 500,000 users on the LifeAI platform, I'd love to double click on the equivalent story in healthcare. What do agentics, specifically like LifeAI as an ecosystem, offer that this existing kind of sick care paradigm can't deliver to individuals?
Yeah, so right now, so a lot of people come to us and say, hey, you guys have a superpower that we have more than 500,000 users on your system. So basically, like with like 500,000 users, you can actually put a lot of power against the traditional healthcare system. But the fact is, it's not. Yeah, because the traditional healthcare system have been running like this for decades or like hundreds of years. So it's really like, I wouldn't say that we need to go and basically like change a lot of things on the existing healthcare. I consider it's like, hey, if someone already built an iOS system, okay, it's still working, it's beautiful, it's closed source, and everything is like, let's say monopoly is have like in the control of some monopolies player. However, with advanced technology, we can actually build a parallel new different type of the healthcare system in which the user is a true owner of their health. Okay, so basically like nobody try to like profit from your illness anymore when you are totally in control. And basically you join up with let's say an ecosystem, join forth a lot of people together, it creates power. So one of the main example when people was talking about about, like, for example, hey, whether the hospital will come to you and try to use your product, because most of the times the hospital are interested in basically the sick care. Okay, whenever people are sick, it's so easy to sell a product, right? Because that is a must-have, right? However, in many cases, for example, like for prevention product, it's really hard to sell. It's really hard to sell. So that most of the time, the hospital are not very interested. So that's why whenever you see something for prevention care or for life care, it's usually made by the government. A lot of like big movements, big initiative is actually started by the governments because they care for the whole population. So they don't have a real incentive to make money based on the sickness of their people. So that's why you can see the like all of us movements in the US or 500 or the 500,000 like biobank in the UK, right? So that is a government sponsor big project. And that's why it's like that is the US, the UK, not many country able to sponsor for that big amounts of money or the big project. So that's why the community play a very important role. And for many years, for tens of years, when people try to come together, you can see a lot of association, right? But this time, with the support of the technology, we basically can bring a lot of people together where everybody can basically like use AI to help them to live healthier. And of course, I don't want to go into the direction where a lot of people are using ChatGPT right now to diagnose themselves. Okay. And like a lot of time people say, hey, ChatGPT says this, and then they go into the drugstore to get some drug to help them better. I don't encourage for that, but you can see the movement. You can see the movement that a lot of people basically like leverage the power of AI to know that they are in control of their health and they can live longer, healthier by themselves. They don't need to go to the hospital. Okay. And so that's why I say that more and more there will be a parallel system for healthcare where it's basically like bring the true meaning of healthcare, that caring for life, not profit for illness. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that this is emerging, but what you've illustrated, Tuan, the notion that it's either at the highest level of government facilitation or at the grassroots of individuals coming together for whether it be pay-as-you-go schemes or things that are on the fringes of what should be the healthcare system. There's that intrinsic demand there. I love the term that you use. It's a must-have when an individual is sick. So there's clearly that demand. As you mentioned, individuals using ChatGPT, just looking for some form of solution. And when we first connected, Tuan, you described LifeAI as a biohub for scalable innovation, which I thought was phenomenal. And it took me a while to kind of really wrap my head around, a biohub. This is a very new and interesting approach, and it's really come together for me just in the last few weeks of our dialogue. I'd really love it if we could break down this notion of a biohub that helps to scale innovation. What does this mean in practice, and how can this only be accomplished with an ecosystem approach, and how can it transform healthcare?
Wonderful. So I think let's bring back the definition of biohub, or let's say how people perceive a biohub. And in the past, most of the time, a biohub is either initiated by the government, because a biohub means the hub for a lot of like biotech company to come to leverage the shared resources to build something. And so that's why it's require a lot of investment. It requires a lot of investment. So for example, the Chan Zuckerberg biohub or the US biohub, the UK biobank, all of that is just basically like require hundreds of millions of dollars to put into it. So, and I'm a big fan of Chan Zuckerberg biohub, where Mark Zuckerberg put like 650 million US dollar into building that biohub, like for non-profit. Okay. And so that's why, like, however, I also believe in the private, or like, let's say, entrepreneur way of building a biohub where people can actually generate revenue, make money, instead of like making it a nonprofit or government-owned initiative. And so that's why you can see that the LifeAI biohub is a very different from many of the biohub. It's actually contained a 3-layer on the top layer is the application. The application, you can see many precision health app running on the LifeAI BioHub. It's just basically you get for the consumer, for people, when they look at the LifeAI BioHub, they can think of it's a one-stop shop for them to search for or to find a precision health app for them. So for example, someone say, hey, I'm afraid of having a stroke because like my family members that have a stroke. Where should they go? Ideally, they go to the LifeAI BioHub marketplace. They will find a personalized stroke prevention application for them. Okay, so at the top, on the top is an application where everybody can use the precision health application, and then like below it is basically a platform for builder. So a lot of people, the developers, where they should go before the AWS, right? You want to start a new startup, you have to make a website. It could take like a team of like 5 people several months to make a website in like around 2000, right? And the moment the AWS came alive, right, making a website is like 2 days, 2-day job, like one person job in 2 days. Similarly, the LifeAI BioHub at the core layer is a platform for builder. So a lot of people say, hey, I can come here and build a healthcare application because it provides everything. Is like modular, AI model, data for training, and also a marketplace for you to basically like showcase your end product. So top application, middle as a platform for builder, and at the foundation, the base of LifeAI BioHub is basically a infrastructure for nation. Okay, so basically like our aim at the end of the day is still like a healthcare system for a population, for nationwide initiative. So that's why we can basically consider the foundation is an infrastructure for the nation. For example, like in Vietnam, the Hanoi Medical University, they have a nationwide program to find the genetic variant associated with cancer. Like say, hey, the government say, hey, I have this project to identify the top genetic variant associated with the 20 most popular cancer in Vietnam. So basically, that is the nationwide project, and we hope that the LifeAI BioHub is just basically serve as an infrastructure for researcher at the nation level to do the population-wide research or application. Yeah. So one sentence summary, the LifeAI BioHub is just basically like at the top application, one-stop shop for user. At the middle layer is a platform for builder, and at the foundation is just basically the infrastructure for public healthcare.
I love that, and that notion of a biohub being this feedback loop of like you mentioned, Tuan, infrastructure for public healthcare, but infrastructure that is empty is not useful. And it is filled with applications that are useful, interesting, and beneficial for individuals. But how do they get there? Through the signal provided by the individuals themselves. So this layering approach and this ecosystem approach is fascinating and very encouraging. It's a very rare situation, Tuan, as I'm sure you're more aware than I am, having built the ecosystem where there's a big flashing light that said, please build this for builders. That's an excellent sign. And so with that said, this ecosystem approach is really beginning to redefine so many industries. Of course, healthcare, Tuan, as you outlined. But Patrick, I'm curious as well. Masumi isn't a single tool. It's really a suite of agentic capabilities, and that marketing teams can compose together for their unique needs. Is that composability part of what makes AI and agentics investable? I would love to hear your thoughts on how you think about building infrastructure versus building just features or one-trick components. Would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that it's really about building networks, right? I mean, what you see right now happening right now is that you have a lot of multi-agent kind of coordination in companies. So you have a lot of these multi-agent frameworks already, like Crew AI and so on. And companies are using them right now to build different crews of agents all with specific talents. Like one is, good at writing copy, another is good at, posting something, another one is good at coordinating, that kind of stuff. So you build teams internally already, completely consistent of AI agents. And what's happening, or where this whole trend is going, is basically that you have those teams and those agentic co-workers in a way, not only inside your company, but you have them outside as well. And then you want them to work together. So you would have like an agent from company A working with an agent from company B. And I think that's really what it's all about. So it's about composability, and it's about coordination through, in our case, a decentralized network. And I really think that this will lead to a lot more efficiency, because I mean, even just looking at the healthcare sector, there's not going to be likely this like one AI that's going to completely dominate the healthcare sector, right? There's probably going to be different AIs from different companies, small, large, but also potentially from hospitals and from individual doctors or so, with like data specific to them and their specific niche, or maybe even their customers. And maybe you even have one for each individual. If I don't want to share my data with everyone out there, and I just have like my own healthcare data running locally in like some local LLM, then you need to have some sort of way to connect with other agents, give them access, and solve these large questions and problems as a team. And not only with agents, by the way, also with other humans in there, and bringing the humans into this network. And that's what we're trying to build. And I really think that this is also where the general trend of AI is going towards at the moment. I mean, even if you look at like what's happening with Google, where they are releasing their agent standard. They released A2A, which is like an agent-to-agent protocol. Then they released Ep.2, which is an agent payment protocol. Then Cloudflare and Coinbase have released X4.2, which is another agent payment standard. So there's like so many standards out there already. I think IBM released one too. Like there's so many, and we need to just figure out a way to bring all these different agents together into one network, ideally not controlled by one centralized, monopoly, but like by a decentralized network, which is us, and then that will unlock like a whole new way of interacting with the world, in my opinion.
It's definitely a powerful thesis, and one that I think we're seeing play out in real time. And one of the things, Patrick, that I find just the most striking about what you're describing here is that small teams can creditably deliver on what you've outlined. It doesn't take a 10,000 person company. For example, I'm assuming you're a nimble, focused team that's building specifically for agentic marketing. What advantages would you say that a small team can bring to the table that incumbents who maybe are looking to self-disrupt aren't able to deliver? And I'm curious what you think that says about the investability of agentics, where such small teams can make such outsized moves.
I mean, as a small team, you can now just build products equally as fast as large teams, and you can just throw them on the market, and this whole cost of these iteration cycles goes down. Because if we realize, okay, something that we're building doesn't work, we can throw it away because the code and the product has become so cheap. While, in the past, if that's like a $2 million bet to build this, maybe, a large company can throw it away and try another thing. That's what has been happening with Google, where they just build 1 million projects and then they throw like 90% of them away. But now you can do that as a small team, which is really incredible, actually. Even as one person, you can go ahead and you can build 20 projects in 1 year, and you can probably even more if you really commit to it, and you can just figure out what is working and what is not working. So I think the investability has never been higher, and you see that there's also like the highest amount of money ever going into AI companies right now. Even though it brings its own risks, of course, as well. If you can just build something and then throw it away quickly again, then the advancement or the advantage that you have by building a cool product is almost zero, and anyone can just clone it very quickly. So the advantage is more in the network that you build, and in the speed, and in the surrounding kind of mechanics that you bring to the table.
I love that. It really illuminates the ecosystem thesis, Patrick, that I believe we've touched on here. I think it really highlights the investability, and it's really a beautiful moment in history, where small teams with the right thesis can perform on the same level as these massive incumbents. And it's exciting because, Tuan, I know LifeAI is already proving this in healthcare with the ecosystem that's been constructed there. And naturally, healthcare is just uniquely complex, and not just individual biomarkers and profiles, but regulation, privacy, and of course, resistance from some of these incumbents. I'm really curious, Tuan. I'd love to hear your perspective on how do you move fast in an industry that seems almost designed to move slowly?
That is a very, very interesting question. Let's say this way that there is no free lunch. Okay, there's no free lunch. Let's say that we move, like at LifeAI, we move faster than many of the traditional healthcare companies. So one of the main reasons, because there are some big guy already spent a lot of money to build foundational AI models. So you can consider the way we move fast is like the way DeepSeek work against the OpenAI. So for healthcare, like there's so many, like when we go deep into each vertical, that you can see that in the US, every healthcare vertical, you can find one of the doctor AI for that vertical. Similarly, for LifeAI, we don't go a horizontal open AI way, we go the DeepSeek way. Okay, so that's why we can move a lot faster and a lot cheaper. So that's whenever we go and talk with our partner, you can consider it's a platform for builder, right? A builder coming to our platform, we say, hey, you don't have to start from zero, right? We already have many models for you to select from. Okay, AI model has become commodity. You don't have to basically create a new model, train a new model. You can pick some existing model, a vertical one. You can train with some specific set of data to fit your need, right? So basically, we pick the model for you, train it for them, and actually have them to develop their own product, right? So all of that one, if they work alone, they could spend like years and basically months or years and millions of dollars to do this. And we say, hey, with $100,000 of US, you can build a standalone product, which we used to build it in like 3-4 years in about like several months. Okay, we basically have them, for example, like KB Pharma. When we first talk with them, like they want to build a personalized stroke prevention for the Indonesian, right? And they say, hey, you already built something in Vietnam, and we would like to build something similar. And we say, hey, you don't need to go to replicate the path we did in Vietnam. You can build a new one on LifeAI platform. It's just basically like instead of like spend about $2 million in about like 2 to 3 years, you can do it in less than $100,000 in basically like 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, and we make it happen. Okay, so basically the main takeaway is we work like a DeepSeek because there's already someone make some great investment, great resources out there. We utilize them, create a vertical model for a specific application. And that's why we move way, way faster than many of the traditional healthcare companies.
Absolutely, and the speed is self-evident. You might remember, Tuan, when we first started speaking, I did a double take. I'm like, that's okay. I expected compression, but the compression of research is startling, and this is relevant for our folks who are listening at home. As a shout out for the giveaway, it's for 6 weeks for stroke prevention, for a stroke prevention product, 36 months for Parkinson research. And Tuan, as you mentioned, this is research that would have taken years and millions of dollars compressed to a 6-week time frame for a stroke product, which is phenomenal. And I'm really interested as well, Tuan, just to kind of expand on what you shared here. All of this sounds fantastic from an ecosystem perspective, and frankly, a paradigm shift in terms of how folks think about not just healthcare as a whole, but preventative medicine, drug discovery, and research. I'm curious, with LifeAI having over 500,000 users, how are you navigating the complexity of almost intrinsically risk-averse industry? And most importantly there, what makes AI investable when naturally many healthcare investors have been burned before, given the complexity of the industry?
Yeah, so I think let's say this way, we are a little bit of like lucky. We are very lucky because, for example, the moment we started in the US and we focus on the Asian American. So basically the American who are Asian. And then we realized that, okay, if we want to focus on the Asian population, let's move to an Asian country. So that's why we relocated to Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Korea, and so on. And let's say this way, that we were very lucky. Like in our early day, we get a lot of support from the local governments. And so that's why I say that in healthcare, things move very slow. Either you have a lot of money, you already have like years of building things, years of proving things, but the moments when you get some like local government support, then basically you can build something at a very large scale with much faster and lesser resources. So let's say we are like way luckier than many of the healthcare startup, because many of my friend healthcare startup actually bankrupt because building a really good healthcare application is really painful. Okay, so let's say that, and also in Asian country, the regulation is very supportive. You can see that in the US, a lot of time people say that China is already more advanced than the US in biotechnology. And that is, in my opinion, that is true, because the very strict regulation in the US is a really old style. They way like, because they should have leveraged the deep tech they invented to bring the ownership, the data ownership, data privacy, data access transparency to the application, but they was like very old style. They use a lot of like strict regulation to basically, and that reduce innovation. Okay, so that's why you can see in China is there a lot of more AI company, and of course, like recently Meta, right? They bought an AI company based in China, and they relocated into Singapore for some reason. But you can see that very strict regulation in the US in a very old style system is actually reducing innovation. So that's why I believe that a lot of innovation, they started in the US or they started in the UK or somewhere in Europe, right? But they really make to the masses, to the bigger population, make a real successful when they come to Asia, where basically like a lot of like adoption, user, and much more friendlier regulation, and a lot of more support, actually more friendlier government's policy actually. Yeah. So and for example, I can give a couple of examples. These days, a lot of like people asking me about Vietnam, because that's where I was born in Vietnam, and the Vietnamese government is like very friendly for innovation. So basically, like a lot of like new policy support for people to build new application. You can see about Israel, let's say 10, 20 years ago, when the government put a lot of effort to make the whole nation become a startup nation. So I can see Singapore, Vietnam, Korea, for example, become a real startup nation. So that's why I keep on I giving a lot of talks this day talking about the innovation may started from the US. But if you really want that innovation to have a huge impact to able to serve a lot of people, come to Asia. Yeah.
I love that, and it very much highlights the global impact of healthcare that we're seeing. It's phenomenal to witness, and Tuan, I believe through what you've just described and illustrated with LifeAI, and by utilizing these global jurisdictions and their comparative advantages, speed is totally possible in highly regulated industries if you're building the right infrastructure and approaching the problem in the right way. So I'm very interested, Patrick. I'd love to hear your take on potential partners and potential investors at Masumi. What similar signals are they potentially looking for when they look at Masumi, or they look at agentics and marketing in general? What separates the signal from the noise? Is there a same multi-jurisdictional consideration, or is it more technology specific that they're looking at?
I mean, the jurisdiction is definitely relevant for us, because as I said, we're in Europe, and most of our customers are in Europe, and I think we can use this to our advantage, because there's like a little bit of a Europe-US scare at the moment. So it helps being in Europe if we are looking at European investors and European partners. But of course, we want to be global. We want to build an open network for everyone. So this is only the starting point. And I think I mean, in the end, it always just comes down to the customers. Like, how many customers do you have? How many of them are actually using the product? That these are the KPIs that are actually relevant, and that's what we're looking at. And we are trying to be more in those like traditional industries, and really position ourselves strongly in there, because once you are in there and you actually bring a lot of benefit, there's not that much change. AI, like right now, everyone is hopping from AI tool to AI tool, right? But if you go into these like larger, medium-sized companies, even corporates, and you really position yourself there and you have long-term customers, then that's a lot more interesting and more stable for us. And that's kind of the direction that we're going. Yeah.
I love that, and that's it really kind of reminds me of something. I know we were all just talking briefly before we jumped on the live stream here, about kind of the waves of innovation we've seen, Patrick. Previously, Tuan, you mentioned very, very early on, I think it's 15 years ago, there were some of the bigger incumbents utilizing AI and doing things with AI. For those who are listening that were around during maybe 2017 or 2021, they remember, hey, it's blockchain's big moment. But naturally, adoption happens in fits and starts. But some may say that 2017 was really that spotlight moment for blockchain technology for the first time. So I'm really curious, Patrick, from your perspective, what makes this wave of AI different? What sets the agentic tools that we're seeing apart as really a part of a durable thesis rather than just kind of an ebb and flow of technological evolution?
I think that the core thesis is that the global productivity will rise, and I think that's what it's all about, and that's why I also don't think it's really a bubble. I mean, of course, there are some bubbly effects to it. I mean, there's a lot of spending there, and maybe many companies that will shut down at some point. But if the global productivity rises, and the best estimate I saw was by Satya Nadella, who is actually the CEO of Microsoft, he said that it should rise by 10%, and then it's really worth it. And that's kind of how I approach this as well. Like, I don't think about AGI too much, because if that happens, then everything will change anyways. And I just think about, okay, how much productivity can be increased.
I love that as a thesis, and it's a very compelling one, and it does kind of get me thinking in a paradigm of the notion of productivity is the essential building block for resource abundance. I'm very interested as well, though, in potential parallel measures that can be utilized. For example, the nation of Bhutan using gross national happiness as a measure for national success. Tuan, I'm fascinated, and you've really got me thinking nowadays in the notion of sick care to healthcare, a measurement of, well, what if we can get the global population 10% healthier, along with having a 10% increase in productivity? Wouldn't that be even better? So Tuan, I'm curious, these are immensely compelling signals, growth and productivity. But healthcare may well be that ultimate proving ground for AI, because naturally when people feel 10% better, that makes them feel a lot, I guess, overall better than just a 10% bump in their portfolio, which is still important. So when investors are looking at LifeAI, Tuan, what proof points do you tend to lean towards showing them to illustrate that this isn't just a shift in technology, but an investable paradigm shift in terms of how we think about healthcare?
Okay, so that's great. So every time, like, we've been working on this for like more than 8 years now, and so whenever people talk about proof point, right, we go straight away about, hey, it's a real product. So we have like 30 different product built on top of LifeAI. We have real user. We have like more than 100,000 of user who basically been using the product on top of LifeAI for the past 8 years. We have real partnership where like big research institute, hospital, institution basically partner with us. Like we have more than like 100 institution partnership been working with us for the past 8 years. So whenever we show the proof point, we say, hey, talk with our partner, see that how much money we save for them. That is the best way. Normally, like, hey, pick up the call, someone will basically doing your reference check for you. That's a main proof point. And also, like, for example, the great thing about like what we see recently for the past 12 months, a lot of like user behavior changes, right? Because previously, like most of the time we had to go through the hospital channel, because at the end of the day, right, the perception of like as a user perception, everything related to healthcare are basically associated with the hospital. So the hospital channels have been our one of the main channel for us to reach out to our customer, our user. But for the past 12 months, so like because maybe like technology people are getting more about ChatGPT, will understand more, and then they basically explore themselves, and then they somehow like AI in our market become a top of mind. So whenever they think about, hey, how can I understand myself better about my DNA, they come to LifeAI. They see one of the like genetic tests specialized for Asian, for example. Whenever they have a problem, like for example, like in many of the Asian country, the rate of people having stroke increased significantly after COVID. Like a lot of people like worry about stroke, worry about getting a stroke, right? And because the ratio of people getting the stroke getting younger and younger, a lot of people like very much worry about it. And in top of mind, they come to the LifeAI marketplace, they can see a personalized stroke prevention for them. Yeah. And this day also, the nice thing about AI is you have a doctor AI in your pocket, right? You don't have to go to the hospital. Most of the time you can actually like you go to LifeAI, you can see like the doctor AI, like basically able to answer many of the questions for you, like the very generic question, until you get a very specific problem, a disease or the rare disease. You need a super, like let's say vertical expert in that field, then you go to the hospital. Otherwise 90% of the things you can actually like get it done by talking with a virtual doctor. Yeah. So because of the behavior changes, it's actually help LifeAI a lot to get more user getting into the system. Yeah. Otherwise, like 3 years ago, it's really hard for us. Always we have to go through the hospital channel.
No, absolutely, and that intrinsic bottleneck is something that I think many folk. I can only speak for my own experience here in the U.S., but here in the U.S. we are faced with that immediate escalation of urgent care or hospital, or just kind of figuring it out. And on the longer arc of prevention, that becomes even more salient. So I was already bullish before jumping onto this broadcast on the future of agentics and its multi-industrial purposes. And now even more so. So, with that said, just kind of coming up on the last couple minutes of our conversation here, I'd love to put a fine tip on it for our audience. If you were talking to an investor on, where it may be interesting to deploy capital in AI and agentics at this time, where would you tell them to look in your particular niche, in your particular realm? So, kick this over to Patrick. Patrick, from the marketing and the agentic side, what signals would you tell a company or an investor in your company or your sector to show that, hey, it's ready for disruption and it's happening now, and agents are in the driver's seat of this disruption?
It's a very good question. I think that I would just look at actual users, because there's too many products right now that sound really cool in theory, but then no one is actually using them, or the theory just doesn't match the reality that much. And I would really look at companies that can show that they actually have users that are really using this every single day to make their lives better. And there's like clear parallels that you can look at in the coding world. Like I would look at what has happened in coding with Cursor and Cloud Code and all this kind of stuff, not from the product per se, but from the kind of adoption rate for that. And I really think that there will be similar kind of adoptions in every single aspect. And if you see a product that is gaining traction, like Cursor has gained traction, then that is a very easy invest. So this is kind of like how I would look at it. And I don't think that there's any particular sector that is less or more investable. To be honest, I mean, obviously healthcare is like a little bit slower moving, so maybe there like the time horizon is longer than maybe marketing, which is more like fast moving. But they're both extremely interesting, and it just depends on what kind of an investor you are and how well you know your area of expertise as well. And yeah.
Absolutely, and I think your answer there, Patrick, really illuminates and it highlights the notion that this is a shift in society that's touching all aspects, which is really exciting to be living through. And Tuan, from your perspective, I'm curious. Naturally, healthcare is massive. AI is fundamentally transformative. Being at the intersection of it is exciting. But why now? What makes this particular time at the intersection of healthcare and AI so investable?
Okay, wonderful. Actually, Patrick make a really good insight already. Healthcare normally move way slower than any other industry. And so this day, like, right, you go into the internet, you can search the word AI bubble. You will basically think that the AI bubble will be like tomorrow, right? However, in healthcare, I think the disruption from AI just started. Okay. And so I really hope that in the next few months, let's say in 2026, finger crossed that the AI bubble will burst, because it's similar to the 2000. The company will go through the 2000s downtime, right? Will become a really big company. And I think that because of the impact the AI already provide for healthcare. I think a lot of healthcare companies, the company who leverage AI for healthcare will be the strong candidate who basically survive the AI bubble, because they really bring impact. They leverage AI to create impact for the society, impact for the humanity. So Patrick make a really good point that at the end of the day, like traction, impact you created. And so I really hope that like the AI bubble bursts this year, so that we, the LifeAI, will basically go through the bubble, and we are one of the few who survive and become a decacorn.
I love it. A strong position and shot across the bow. It's time to enter the pressure chamber. LifeAI is ready. That's so exciting, and it's such a exciting time to be in the industry and then having conversations with builders such as yourselves. So with that said, I appreciate everyone and their time, their attendance, our listeners, our audience. One last quick question for the both of you: if people want to start getting engaged with the awesome stuff you're building, where can they find you? Patrick, I'll kick it over to you, my friend. Where can we find more from yourself and Masumi?
Yeah, so I think Patrick said that his laptop running out of battery.
Oh, no. Yeah. Okay, no worries there. Perfect timing. So we'll pass it over to you, Tuan. If we want to know more about LifeAI, which I encourage everyone to do, where can we find some more information?
Yeah, so I think our Twitter is the main, let's say, the window to basically share the work at LifeAI BioHub with the world. And so you can go to our Twitter account or my personal account. Normally, I just basically retweet our main Twitter. Okay, and like Tuan Tuan underscore LifeAI. That's my personal Twitter account. Yeah, and of course we are going to update our LinkedIn profile, but I think like Twitter is have much more information about us. Yeah.
That's excellent. Definitely encourage everyone to check out LifeAI. And on Patrick's behalf, you can check out Masumi at masumi.network. They are a decentralized protocol empowering AI agents to collaborate seamlessly and monetize their services effectively. And you can check them out on Twitter at Masumi Network. So shout out to Masumi and the team and Patrick for their excellent contribution today. And of course, Tuan, always phenomenal discussing with you and just exploring the future that we're hurtling towards and the exciting ability for anyone and everyone worldwide to access actual healthcare, not sick care. So today, everyone, we were able to explore what makes disruption genuinely investable. Small teams can now operate on the same level as massive enterprises. Incumbents are investing in undertaking self-disruption themselves. Agentics are their own category with an AI capability, and healthcare's massive market and its slow-going nature, intersecting with AI's transformative capabilities, makes for a very compelling thesis. So with that said, thank you all so much. We do have one more final component here. We have giveaway announcements. So with that said, we'll be announcing that momentarily, just waiting for those to come through. And drum roll. On the screen was the question. And so the answer will be, if the team on the back end can pop up the answer. Awesome. So we will be posting the winners live below in a thread on Twitter. So keep an eye out for that. I thank you all so much for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Lifeline.